Mia.
When I turned to the sound of my classmate's call, there was a friend from freshman year running towards me from the other end of the hallway.
Hey, I heard you're going to perform at a famous concert.
Oh, you heard? Yes, I am.
That's so cool. Why didn't you tell me sooner?
There's going to be a live stream. You should watch it if you can.
What, really? I'll definitely watch it.
With my friend's loud voice, other students started to gather around. It seemed many people knew about my concert appearance.
A concert.
She plays the violin. Didn't you know about Mia?
Her violin skills are well known.
Oh, is that so?
Suddenly, surrounded by classmates, I started to panic.
Wow. If you're performing in such a big event, don't you get a lot of allowance from your parents?
One of my classmates said that. Suddenly, I felt tighten in my heart.
What kind of nonsense are you saying? Hey, don't crowd around Mia.
My friend jumped in to defend me, and slowly the crowd dispersed. The truth is, I don't have parents who give me any allowance.
Mia, you're the older sister, so you can handle this, right?
I wonder how many times I've heard those words in my life. When I was younger, all I could do was nod in agreement with a lump in my throat. I was about to turn 4 when my younger brother was born. I was supposed to get a cake and have a party for my 4th birthday, but in the end, my birthday party never happened. Both of my parents were constantly at the side of my brother, Derek, who was just born and was not in a stable condition. Once he was born, both my mom and dad had to make frequent hospital visits, so I started staying at my grandpa's house. My kindergarten bag was always at my grandpa's house. My clothes and toys increasingly found a new home at my grandpa's place. When I finally returned home after a while, many of my belongings had disappeared, replaced by Derek's stuff. But I couldn't be mad. After all, he was frail. Just before I graduated from kindergarten, our family had planned a vacation. It was the theme park I had always wanted to visit. But right before the trip, Derek fell ill. He ended up being hospitalized, so my dad suggested, since mom has to stay with him, how about we go there, just you and me? But I shook my head. If Derek and mom weren't going, I didn't want to go either. Despite giving up on a lot because of him, the one thing I truly got into was the violin, which I started learning the year I entered elementary school. I begged for a violin, and my dad bought it for me. At the time, I was just ecstatic that my dad paid attention to me, but now I think maybe he just got it to keep me busy. I wasn't good at the violin at all. I only managed to produce weird, screeching sounds. But whenever I played in front of Derek, he would laugh, probably finding the strange sounds amusing. That made me laugh too, and I often put on little concerts for him. Gradually, I began to enjoy playing and eventually could play proper songs. He always listened to my performances with joy. Even though I kind of resented him, I was happy when he enjoyed my performances, so I even gave him handmade concert tickets. Those tickets, made from folded paper and pen, were always front row seats. I was frequently left at my grandpa's house, and I don't have many memories of my parents paying much attention to me. Even though I had to put up with many things, I didn't particularly hate my life with my family and Derek. This all changed when I was in 3rd grade. One day, my violin teacher handed me a letter with a big smile.
This is for you, Mia. Hand it over to your parents. They'll surely be delighted.
She said. I passed the letter to my parents.
Isn't this an invitation to perform at a concert?
Upon reading the letter, my mother exclaimed in surprise. It was an invitation to perform at a children's violin concert in New York. This concert, featuring elementary to middle school students, was, of course, something I had always admired. It was like a gateway to becoming a renowned violinist on the world stage. I felt the joy of being recognized slowly filling my heart, and I looked up at my parents.
Mia, this is amazing. To think you'd be invited to such a concert.
My parents were thrilled for me. I was beyond happy. For the first time since my brother, Derek, was born, I felt my parents were genuinely seeing me. But that night, as I woke up to use the bathroom, I overheard my parents speaking.
So, what are we going to do about the concert?
There's nothing we can do.
They were talking in hushed tones with troubled faces. I couldn't hear everything clearly, and as I reached for the door to ask them about it, I stopped. It's because I heard my name.
We can't do that. She would end up coming with us.
Feeling a sense of dread, I quickly left the spot. What were they discussing? I found out soon enough. That weekend, I packed my few clothes, toys, and school items into a bag. Most of my belongings were already at my grandparents' house, so there wasn't much to pack. Holding that bag, I arrived at my grandparents' place. My grandmother welcomed me with a warm smile and a comforting hug.
Listen, don't cause any trouble for your grandparents.
My father told me. Then, after one last look back, he walked away. I haven't seen him since. Not just him. Neither my mother nor Derek came back. At first, I believed they'd come to get me after a little while. But as the weeks turned into months, I realized this was different. I had been abandoned by my parents. I once cried and told my grandfather about this. With a stern face, he only said, "They have their reasons. They'll be back." Whenever I cried, my grandmother would always cook my favorite dish for dinner. A creamy omelet, different from the one my mom used to make. While I ate, she would gently pat my head and say, "Because you are always so patient and good, God is watching over. Something wonderful is bound to happen to you someday." Time passed, and even when I started high school, my parents never showed up. Gradually, I came to believe that they were worried about Derek's health and never really cared about me since I was healthy. I decided I'd become hugely successful as a violinist, gain global recognition, and one day, I'll get back at them. That thought kept me going. And then, finally, I was invited to a prestigious violin concert. It was the grown-up version of the concert I had been invited to in elementary school. In this concert, there was a segment where high school and college students would perform. I was selected to be part of it. This was one of the goals I had always aimed for. It's a concert that's also being streamed. My parents might hear about it. Maybe then, they'll start to see me differently. Perhaps I can prove myself to them. With that faint hope, the days flew by, and the concert date arrived before I knew it. On that day, my grandparents were also coming to watch, which I was looking forward to. I was excited to show them how much I've grown, as they've been like parents to me. Of course, I was nervous too. I had headed to New York a bit early and had a reservation at a hotel near the venue. My grandparents were scheduled to arrive on the morning of the concert. On the day of the concert, I woke up earlier than usual. I gazed outside from my hotel room, lost in thought. My goal is still far away. I want to be a violinist who can perform worldwide. But today is a step towards that goal. I took a small piece of paper out of my wallet. It was a handmade concert ticket stub I had made for Derek a long time ago. On a folded piece of paper with a dashed line, Mia's concert was written in childish handwriting. He had begged, "I want to see your concert," so I tore off the stub and set up a seat in front of me. I can hardly remember his face anymore, but I loved seeing that sparkling smile. Even if my parents weren't watching me, even if it was because of him. Then the doorbell rang. Startled, I took the paper ticket stub into my pocket and headed to the door. It's much earlier than the time I heard that the grandparents would come. Had they already come? When I opened the door, my grandparents were there. And behind them, Dad? Yes, it was my dad. I hadn't seen him since I was in the 3rd grade. Questions like, "Why now?" and "What are you doing here after all this time?" flooded my mind. But I couldn't voice any of them. My father's face was as pale as a sheet. He looked so ill, I thought he might collapse. By the look on his face, I could tell something serious had happened.
Listen, Mir,
My grandmother began.
we need to talk.
From behind her, my father leaned in.
Derek is.
At those words, my head began to spin. Why is this man talking about Derek, even at a time like this? It's been 7 years since he last saw his daughter, who he had ignored. But seeing the distress in his eyes, I swallowed my annoyance. What had happened to Derek? "Please come in." I invited the 3 of them inside. As they sat on the sofa in my room, my father, his face still pale, apologized deeply, almost kneeling. I was taken aback.
I'm so sorry, Mia. I regret leaving you all these years.
He said, "He's still apologizing?" In my memories, my dad was a more robust man. However, the man in front of me now has more gray hair and has slimmed down a bit.
Derek's condition isn't good.
I clenched my lips tightly. I knew it. My parents started to explain everything that had happened, choosing their words carefully. When I was in 3rd grade and got an invitation to perform at a violin concert, Derek was fighting for his life. They never went into detail with me as a child, but he was born with a heart condition. He was always said to have a short life expectancy, with doubts if he would even make it to adulthood. There was a treatment, but 7 years ago, it wasn't available in the US and we would have had to move to Europe. My parents couldn't give up on his future and started considering moving. But when they were making these plans, that's when I got my concert invitation. The concert in New York clashed with our departure date for Europe. They were genuinely happy about my chance to perform at the concert. They remembered the joy of buying me a violin, even if it was a bit pricey, after I had pestered them saying, "I want to play." Seeing me play it in front of Derek always made them happy. Now, I have got the opportunity to perform at a concert considered a gateway for emerging violinists. There wasn't anything happier than that. But the issue was Derek and the move to Europe. My parents thought that, if they told me they were moving for him, I would insist on quitting the concert and moving with them. They had already made me sacrifice a lot for him and didn't want to ask anymore. They wanted me to follow my dreams. Recalling a conversation I overheard from my parents one night, I remember them saying,
"We can't do that. She would end up coming with us."
that was what they meant. They didn't want to stand in the way of their daughter's dreams. Yet, they couldn't give up on saving their son's life either. My parents were tormented by this dilemma. Seeing their struggle, my grandparents made a suggestion.
We'll take care of Mia. You two focus on getting Derek the treatment he needs.
And so, they left me with my grandparents and headed to Europe with him. In Europe, his health started improving, but it took much longer than anticipated. By the time his health stabilized and they got the doctor's permission to return, only a short time had passed. Perhaps due to the strains of the long journey, his health deteriorated again. Now, 14-year-old Derek is awaiting major surgery in New York. Since coming back, he started mentioning my name, something he rarely did in Europe. He often said he wanted to see me and hear me play the violin. Then, last night, his condition suddenly worsened. My mom is with him right now, and they might have to move the surgery up a few days. They believe the surgery might increase his chances of recovery.
Mia, I know it's a lot to ask after telling you all this, but could you visit Derek just once?
I was in shock, looking at my dad as he hung his head. This was all too much to process at once. The reason they left me behind, Derek's illness. Leaving without explaining anything wasn't ideal, but they had my best interests at heart, and the current state of his health. It was an overwhelming amount of information, and my head was spinning. After a long pause, I finally spoke. I get the situation, but I still can't process all of it. I'm sorry, can you leave for now? A raspy voice came out. Dad looked up. His face wore an expression of sheer despair, one filled with anguish. Why did he have to appear in front of me today, of all days? He said he wanted to support my dream, but then he left me behind. I get it. Derek's condition worsened suddenly yesterday. Still, his actions felt so out of place. There's no way I can accept these people who abandoned me for 7 years and just ditch my important concert. I'm sorry, I need to focus. I stood up and left the room. I couldn't bear to see my father's face, twisted as if he were about to cry, any longer. I walked and walked until I arrived in front of the concert venue. I could see some staff members here and there, setting up the venue.
Hey, is that you? Ms. Mia Johnson?
I turned around upon hearing the voice and saw the man responsible for the concert, the one I met at yesterday's meeting, approaching. Good morning.
Good morning, you're early.
Well, I'm sorry, I just came for a walk. I'll be heading back.
Oh, you're leaving. Don't you want to check out the venue?
Hearing his words, I stopped in my tracks, having decided to head back to the hotel. Many people were checking out the venue.
How do you feel? You'll be performing there today?
The stage he pointed to was shining so brightly, it almost blinded me. It's amazing. I'm getting nervous.
Don't worry about it. You're a hard worker.
It's probably just a flattering. Yet, for some reason, my eyes started to tear up. I've worked hard because I love playing the violin. I always wanted my parents and Derek to notice me someday.
Mia, play it.
I felt as if I heard young Derek's voice. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a crumpled ticket stub. While staring at the worn-out stub, I lifted my head. Thank you. I'll be on my way now.
All right, looking forward to your performance.
I shook hands with him and started my way back to the hotel. As I walked, I dialed my grandmother's number.
For the high school category, next up is Mia Johnson.
My name was called. The sound of resounding applause filled the venue. I walked up to the stage, the sound of my heels echoing. I will not go to the hospital. That's what I decided. I want to play the violin for myself. I faced the audience. The stage was well lit, so I couldn't clearly see the darkened audience. In the middle of the dimly lit seats, I spotted a camera. It was a camera for broadcasting. I want to play the violin for myself. And the person I wanted to listen to it was on the other side of that camera. I stared straight into the camera and took a deep bow. Then, 30 minutes later, I left the concert venue and was running. After finishing my performance, I ran straight out of the stage. It was hard to run in heels in a classy off-the-shoulder dress, but I didn't care. Were they able to see me? Could they hear me? I rushed into the hospital they told me about, and the receptionist looked at me with wide eyes. But when I told her my name, she seemed to understand and led me to the room. I placed my hand on the door with the name tag Derek Johnson. When I opened it, a gust of wind blew in from outside. I hurriedly shut my eyes, and when I opened them slowly, several adults turned to look at me. The familiar face of my mother looked at me in surprise. Further in, I saw Derek lying down. He was connected to several tubes, but he widened his eyes when he saw me.
Mia.
His voice was surprisingly strong, and I let out a big sigh. Did you watch?
Yeah, I watched.
He gave me a faint smile. His expression hadn't changed since he was a child.
Wait, you're the performer from the concert earlier.
A man in a white coat, probably a doctor, said in a surprised tone.
Oh, so you're Mia. Well, truly a miracle.
The doctor looked at me and chuckled, making me tilt my head. A miracle.
You had the concert broadcasted to the senior folks, right? When Derek heard your performance, his condition stabilized. It's really quite mysterious. If a violin could cure illnesses, we doctors would be out of business.
The doctor said in a gentle tone.
Indeed, I'm so surprised. That's my Mia.
She let go of Derek's hand, took mine, and said,
You were fantastic.
I clenched my fists. I was holding back the tears that were threatening to come.
Mia.
Derek called me closer to his bed. From a drawer beside his bed, he pulled out a small case. Inside was a small piece of paper. I immediately recognized it as the concert ticket I made.
Can I still use this?
I held back a laugh and said with a wry smile, That's just a used stub, isn't it? It's no good, but I'll bring you a real ticket next time. His face lit up with a big smile. I'm still living with my grandparents. Derek is supposed to come back after his surgery, and then we'll start living as a family again. The time we lost isn't coming back, and I haven't forgiven everything. But now, I really want to live properly as a family of 4. Plus, I plan to host 7 years worth of concerts for them.